chapter 5, Looking Further. This chapter covers John Woolman's journeys and reflections from 1760 to 1763. He spends more time now, as you move later in his journal, you'll find him spending a little more time in reflection than on just recording events. And I think he's developing his own thoughts about things further as the journal, as he matures and the journal grows. And what I find, I use the term looking further because I think in so many different areas that's what's going on for him. In the earlier chapters, in the earlier piece of his life, he's local. He gets concerned with slavery. He speaks about and war, which also surrounds him at that period of time. But then, as he gets older, he begins to broaden his understanding of even like economic issues, clothing, such things like dyed and undyed clothing, or seacoasts and the economy of seacoasts. Or then he goes and visits a Native American population and spends time there. And so his interests just broaden and his reflections broaden along with that. And you'll see that in this particular chapter. And this is something that you'll see further on in the book as well, is that he'll begin to talk about reforms of church and state. He'll begin to talk, to think of traveling further. He considers going to the West Indies, and then ultimately he dies in England. So this broadening is a theme that's present all the way through Woolman's journal, but this chapter highlights that broadening. I think one of the things that you could do to get the most out of this chapter then is to notice the themes that you've already seen in one way or another in the earlier chapters. Themes like the value of all living things, grief for those who are oppressed, sensitivity to God's Spirit, embeddedness in the body of Christ. Take a look at some of these themes and then see how they develop, see how they mature as his own life broadens. That's one of the things about John Woolman, why I even struggled when we were trying to put this book together. Do I topically arrange everything, or do I just record John Woolman's journal chronologically? What I've ultimately chosen to do is a little bit of both. That I'm following a chronology, and so you get the chapter by chapter in the Sacred Roots edition that goes through Woolman's history, but I try and highlight different themes as we go through. But by the time you're here, and you can look at a lot of these different themes, some of which weren't showcased in any particular chapter, like the respect for all living things. It's woven all the way through Woolman's works, but can't easily be placed in one single chapter. But it's kind of neat to take a look now, and where are we at this stage of his life and how all these themes develop. Why I draw attention to this is because we as Christian leaders, one of our tasks in life is to help people discover what the Spirit is giving them in terms of primary values, our own calling and core values and cutting edge, and then how we mature in that. So the question, how do we as leaders facilitate others maturing in their core values? I think that's something you can begin to ask as you look at Woolman's journal in this period. One thing that I hope you will catch, and I think Woolman is really good in this particular chapter on this issue, one thing that I would hope you would catch is Woolman's sense of the interconnectedness of all things. He understood what we now call fair trade or consumer ethics. He understood that way before it became popular. And he reflects in this chapter on the economic significance of wearing dyed or undyed clothing, the economic significance of sea coasts and either living simply or not simply, and what that has to do with the dangers of those being out in sea, or further on in slavery and the results of our consumer activities on slavery, and all of these things. Woolman is very, very conscious about the interconnectedness of purchases and economic systems and oppression and all of how all of that works. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see in this chapter is to pay attention to Woolman's consciousness of consumer ethics. He exhibits keen insight into the interplay of economic, social, spiritual forces. And in this matter, then, I consider Woolman to be a brilliant example of Christian consumer ethics today.